I actually think the work-life balance conversation is a lie. Work and life are now one. So the question is, how do you live well inside of that reality?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Flywheel Effect. We're sponsored by Vital. Vital helps any company that wants to, but primarily home and commercial integrators, level up their business by focusing on their people, their problems, their finances, to get everything in order to allow you to grow and work on your business instead of in it. So Matt, how are things going?
And things are great. My voice is recovering from a couple of things. Actually, last night I went and saw my current favorite band, Sense of Motion, which is a reggae band out of Jersey, actually. And they don't play the West Coast often. I'm surprised they're not bigger than they are because the beats, the rhythms, the lyrics, just on point. And I was excited to see them in this tiny little venue. It was a dive bar in Costa Mesa, less than 100 people. I brought my oldest daughter, who's almost 19. We just had a ball, just singing and dancing. So my voice is recovering a little bit from that.
Oh, great.
And then,
that sounds like fun.
Oh man, it was such a blast. And they played all the greats, and the sound system was fantastic. And then over this last weekend, I participated in the New Warrior Training Academy, which is put on by the Mankind Project. They've been doing that for over 30 years. And it's hard to explain. A lot of it is confidential, but essentially what it is a reinitiation. And it follows, some processes of, similar to our ancestors and how they would initiate, boys into men, combined with many modern technologies. It was in person in Orange County. Actually, they do it all over the world. If you want to check it out, highly recommend it. You won't go too far on this tangent, but healthy masculinity has changed over the years and frankly has been lost for a number of reasons. Healthy masculine role models are fewer and further between. So it's been their mission over the last, like I said, over 30 years to revive that process. Very experiential. And for most men who go through it, it's incredibly transformative.
All right. So are you a better man now, Matt, as a result of this?
I am.
I think you're a pretty good man before. So
thank you. I continue to level up, continue to chisel it out.
Who else has been leveling up? America over the past 250 years.
Man, that segue.
You like that one?
Yes.
Which is what we're talking about today. Now, we're a business podcast, but that doesn't mean that business is all that matters, and nor does it mean that this isn't relevant to business. Matt, in his suggestions of what our podcast topic should be today, brought it up, says, hey, Brent, you want to talk about America? Coming on this 250th anniversary? And I'm like, hell yeah. I am a nut about this stuff, a history buff, someone who loves American culture. So I was like, let's do it. So Matt, why did you suggest this topic?
I'm sure it felt like it came out of left field for you.
Oh yeah, it was great though.
So a couple of things. One, this long weekend is Memorial Day weekend. And for most of us, we're not working on Monday. This is when we're recording the podcast. I was really looking forward to the weekend for a number of reasons. I have both my daughters and a lot of fun stuff that we're going to do with friends. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Of course, it's a time where we remember our fallen soldiers, right? 2 months from now, we'll be, a little more than 2 months from now, actually less than that.
About a month.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating the 4th of July, which is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And while I appreciate where I was born and raised, I appreciate the freedoms that we have and the people who've died for those freedoms and how far we've come as a country. I'm not a massive history buff, but it created a moment of pause for me when I realized the 250-year anniversary for a couple of reasons. One, it's a big deal. And two, when I was a child, as we would drive between my mother and father's house, I would drive by the Prado Dam here in California. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a fairly large dam. And for the bicentennial, so whatever that was, 50 years ago, right? Do the math for me, Brent, while I'm talking. Is that 86? Or
76.
sorry, 76. Because that's when you were born. So 1976, they painted a giant mural for the bicentennial on Prado Dam. And it said 200 years of freedom. And then it had 1776 and 1976, the dates. And as a child who drove by that, I had no idea what it was. I'm sure I asked a million questions about it, but it just has been seared into my memories, the bicentennial. And so, all of these things kind of came together for me in the last couple of weeks as I thought about this. You know what? Let's throw this out there as a topic. So here we are, and I'm excited because I think this will be a very textured conversation.
Yeah, we could go so many different directions. We may have to do this again, continue to take up the topic. But I thought this was great. I think for a few reasons for me, I thought your topic was great. One, as I said, I am a history buff. As you mentioned, I was born in 1976 in June in Washington, D.C., while my dad was in law school. So the bicentennial celebration in Washington happened basically a month to the day after I was born. I was born on June 3rd. From when I was 6 years old, I remember my dad and grandfather telling stories to me about the bicentennial and how I was there and a baby during the parade and the fireworks and the rockets' red glare and all that good stuff. And it was that was just part of who I was. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I just kind of fell in love with the history. And it's in some ways the mythology of how our country started and what it became. So it's it was core to my being. I mean, so much so, man, that I did not take AP US history in high school, but I really loved it and decided to take the AP test anyway and still got a perfect score, 5 out of 5.
Wow.
Because I just was into it and I still am.
Yeah.
You can tell, I'm jazzed up right now just thinking about it. I probably shouldn't have had any coffee today.
I think as I was preparing for this conversation, what popped up into my head is perspective. When we think about 250 years, that really is nothing in the span of human history, right? It's not even a blip, but it's everything in terms of the American experiment, what we've experimented as a country. But I think when we sit here and think about 250 years, most of us would agree it just doesn't feel like that long. In part because we're living so much longer now, right? In today's generation, we're living to 70 or 80 years. So, that's 3 or 4 lifetimes.
So I'll give you another little detail of points. The bowhead whale is the longest living mammal in the world, right? And the bowhead whale can live over 250 years. So there are whales that are currently swimming in the North Atlantic that were alive when the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Yeah, that's wild. So, more perspective, right? And so when I think about small business owners, especially home service businesses, they're sometimes living in a window of fear. That window of fear could be 30 days, could be 2 weeks if I'm going to make payroll, a couple of weeks. It could be 90 days. It could be a year. And when we zoom out, when we think about business, 10% of 250 years is 25 years. And when we think about business, we often hear the goal of business is just to keep going, to stay in business. Of course, there's many other goals. But when we think about as a business owner, if I carved out a 25-year chunk, that's a third of a lifetime these days, right? We'll live until about 75, I think. It's a third of a lifetime, and it's 1/10 of how long our country has even been around. Imagine what you can build in that 25-year time span. And the lesson isn't relax. The lesson isn't that we should just relax because we have plenty of time. It's to plan longer and fear less, right? It's when you're in your 20s, you could do crazy stuff with your financial plan because you have plenty of time to recover from it. When you're in your 60s and 70s, you can't. So I guess perspective as the antidote for fear is one thing that came up for me early on.
I think that's great. I think maybe we start with perspective and some kind of realities of the time frame, right? Even though it's 250 years and we're this very young country, we're an incredibly old state. Technically, the U.S. government is the longest continuously serving Republican or Democratic government in the world. And in some ways, other than monarchies that are inheritance-based, so that maybe have a little bit longer, but really aren't that many of those left either, we're the oldest government in the world. That's crazy. It's crazy to think of that when our founders built something, when they wrote the Constitution, I have one here. This is my pocket Constitution, which I almost always have with me. When they wrote that Constitution and they spelled a little tiny pamphlet, that's what governs our world country. They created something that was radical and different that has endured for 250 years. And in that endurance, it's changed the globe in a way no other secular document has changed. say, oh, the Bible. Yeah, but that's not secular, right? Think secular. No Bible, no Torah, no Quran. It's extraordinary. But it was still done by men who were working, dealing with all their stuff, dealing with their lives, their children, everything else like we do every day. But they created something enduring and wonderful. The lesson to me is that you can create something enduring and wonderful today too. You just have to focus on what's true and right. And you can think about that creation, that's that working on your business instead of inside. In a way that's incredibly meaningful.
To your point though, Matt, there is a quote from Lexi de Tocqueville around that time period. And here's what it is. And let's see if this resonates with what you're saying. And I'm going to get, industrial evolution is a little different, but let's do here. As one digs deeper into the national character of the Americans, one sees that they have sought the value of everything in this world only in the answer to this single question: how much money will it bring in? So everything he was talking about with civil society, it wasn't altruistic. It was belief that it was to the benefit of the individual. So,
and when was this? Like what year?
1830.
That's wild. 1830. I mean, still, most people were traveling around on horses, right?
Only horses. There were barely.
No, exactly. It was, God, that's wild, man. Wow. That has stuck for that many years, for 200 years. And it's, social media proves it.
But it's how do you harness that makes a difference?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And as a country, those two things of constantly busy, focus on the person, yourself, focus on money, it's actually all okay.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And here's the reality is any country that says their people don't care about money or don't care about themselves, it's just lying. It's just how do you form society to focus it in the right way? And I think this is key. This focus on the person and growth and restlessness. If you look in our country relative to Europe, Europe was richer than us for a long time. We kind of caught up, actually not until the 20th century, really. But then around the year 2000-ish, right around when the euro was launched, US and Europe were essentially identical and had been identical the same as far as per capita GDP. So how much money are we generating as a country divided by the number of people that we have? We are the same. We now exceed them by 30%. Our standard of living has blown out past the European standard of living. Everyone says, oh, why can't we be more like Europe? Because then we'd be poor. For anyone who thinks Europe's great, if you go around Europe and you get out of the historic city centers, which are beautiful and wonderful, and you look in the second ring, everybody lives in these tiny little apartments. They look dirty. You got to hang your laundry out on the railing, right? That you just washed in the sink. Food's expensive. Yeah, you got national health care, but most of the time it sucks when you actually need something real. And they actually wish they were American. It's for all the faults of the system, which are many, and we can go into them, it hasn't been one created that promotes and develops human prosperity more than the American experiment. Right? Some people don't want to hear that, but I believe it to be true.
Yeah. There's a ton of evidence for it. And that doesn't mean we can't be better. Right? Better by different measurements. And also the beautiful part about the first sentence of the Declaration of Independence is, as you said, the pursuit of happiness is individual. So to some, the pursuit of happiness is buying all the things, having all the houses, having all the land, whatever. Others, the pursuit of happiness is not that. And some people, it's somewhere in between. So that's the beautiful part here is that people get to choose. We have the right to choose and nearly unlimited opportunity, I believe, to get what we want out of life.
Yeah. Look, it is truly unlimited opportunity. I know people say, oh, things don't move, that we're stuck in our classes of a society. But that's not really true. And I'm going to give you one little tidbit of evidence to point out. If you look at how people change within how you want to define class, whether they're going to lower, upper, middle, whatever, we do have it's more stuck than it was. But there's one group of people that seem to move between classes, mostly upwardly, more than anyone else. And that's immigrants. So immigrants come here without any of the baggage of perception of what the U.S. is, other than, wow, I think there's opportunity there. I'm going to make myself a better life for my family. Now, immigrants are self-selecting. They are a group of people that are willing to leave everything they had behind and start new in a new place. That's a special breed, and we should respect immigrants. Like, I'm a believer in immigration in many ways. They move. They go from poor within a generation or two. They typically have moved up dramatically in the course of their lives because they believe in opportunity, because they came here to work, because they are willing to put their time as a sacrifice to the improvement of themselves and their families.
They're taking nothing for granted, right? Just being born here in the U.S. is a massive advantage to anybody, right? So, yeah, that's great. So continuing through the history in the arc, right, we have this industrial revolution, the worker becomes the unit. There's all these things around not taking advantage of workers and whatnot. And then we have post-World War II is sort of the next phase of evolution in business. This is where you have corporate structure, you have hierarchies, you have org charts, you have all that stuff that comes into play, right? Anything to talk about there, like maybe up to the 1980s?
Let's take one step back first. Like, late 1800s, early 1900s is when the corporations started to exist. Like people, businesses were people prior to that. I think like Standard Oil was really the first, among the first robber barons, as they call them, were corporations that had a separation between the financing and ownership and the work that was being done. Right? Like you, as an employee of one of those corporations, you did work for a paycheck. And as an owner or financier of that, you reap the benefit of that work that you paid for. And there were some serious problems led to the whole onset of unions, transformation of government, the rights of workers, and then during the New Deal, things like Social Security, minimum wage, et cetera, that changed radically. Now, what happened after World War II was something very different. Now that we had this welfare state, we had Social Security, we had Medicare. Now that we had this opportunity for people to believe that there was a path by where they can go to work, have a good life, have a middle class life, like this whole idea of the middle class is a fairly new phenomenon. I think when we talk about American concept, it's this concept of the middle class that we're focused on.
It's really about the 1950s, right around that time, right?
True.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can go work for 40 years, retire, and have a retirement. But we've also created a myth around that about what we had and what we didn't, that we also have to be careful. When Social Security was passed in 1937, I think, something like that, right around there, retirement age, it said, when you started earning benefits, was 65. Do you know what the average age of death of a working man, as mostly men at that point, was? 63.
Yeah.
So there was an assumption of Social Security that they pay no benefits.
Right.
We expect to have a third of our life, potentially, a third of our life without any productive work. Probably a little misguided. I think we have to change the concept of what retirement needs to be if we want to continue on this path of happiness. I don't know.
What comes up for me, as you mentioned, now that we're jumping a little bit ahead in the history, but we can go back, is where I think things started to shift in the 2000s, and certainly lately, is that work and life are merging. What is retirement really anymore, right? There are many people who truly aren't retiring, who build a life they don't have to retire from. And what does that look like? And I'm not suggesting that's the majority of people, but it is shifting dramatically, especially for my kids and what eventually will be, when your kids get into the college age.
Thank you for bringing me back to what my point was to begin with before I kind of went on a couple of different things. Prior to the 1950s, there was no expectation that you were going to live past the day you worked. There was no, retirement did not exist. There was not this expectation of a life of leisure, and you did not work 5 days or 40 hours. If you owned your own business or worked up until that point in time, you worked minimum of 6. You did not work on Sunday because Sunday was God's day. But every you worked and you took pride in it, and it is what it is. I think the key, Matt, is I think most of our integrators and most of our listeners are of the type that do take pride in what they do, and I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are working in a way that they don't take pride in their work. They view their work purely as a means to an end. If they don't like their employer, they don't like what they do it solely for a paycheck, even though that's always going to be the primary reason. and don't find that satisfaction. That satisfaction in work is actually critical, going back to Tocqueville and earlier. Every one of those founding fathers worked in a way that they loved what they did. Like the printer. John Adams was a lawyer and loved it. Like Thomas Jefferson, I don't know. He was like a country gentry. It's a little different. I think what's missing in a lot of the current world is a love of your work and identification of what it means to work.
I totally agree. And what's really interesting, timing wise, there's a few things that come up for me. I actually think the work-life balance conversation is a lie. Work and life are now one. So the question is, how do you live well inside of that reality? And this reminds me of a conversation I had last night when I was hanging out with my daughter. She just finished her first year at Ole Miss. She's looking to get a Gallup degree. And she, like many of her peers, are unsure of what work even looks like in the future. They don't know what to study because they don't know what the impact of AI is. They feel massive pressure to make a bunch of money because of what they see on social media. She even mentioned to me, what did I tell her? We were talking about, where does $150 come from? I think I mentioned to her, as parents do, like, this is what life was like when I was driving my car and I had to pay for gas. But the concept of money is totally different these days. For many kids, they just see stuff, they see consumerism everywhere. And so their number one driver is, how do I make enough money so that I can keep up with the consumerism? It isn't, how do I determine what I like? And so the conversation with her last night was like, hey, why don't you first figure out what you're going to enjoy, because you're going to be working quite a long time. And her response is, I don't even know what that is. And I said, that's okay. You're 18 years old. It's okay that you don't know what that is. And so I think our education system needs to shift back to the way that it was many years ago, where we were more trade focused and giving them opportunities to explore all of these things as they grow up. If you love working with your hands, do you love working with your brain? Do you do both? What do you love doing, so that by the time they graduate high school, they have some sense for what they love, and then continue to pull on that thread as they get into college or trade school.
Interesting way you talk about education. So way back then, the primary model for the trades was an apprenticeship model. People went to be an apprentice and learn on the job for someone who used their labor, but gave them an opportunity to learn. Like how you were an audio glasses, you went to work as an apprentice for a blacksmith. We seem to have abandoned the apprenticeship model in this country for the most part. A little bit of electrician kind of stuff, but like that's it. That's the piece we need back. But on the other side, I want to answer a question like, your daughter doesn't know what this, that's really critical. But it's also the wrong question, right? Here's why it's the wrong question. It's not what you study that matters. It's how do you learn how to study? Because what the key is with the advent of AI, it's not having hard skills in the same way. It's having the ability to have a flexible, adaptable mind that is able to learn quickly, shift gears when necessary, and adapt. That nimbleness is what will cause a young person to be successful, as opposed to even 5 years ago, go be a coder, right? Like, go be a coder, you're going to get a job. Go be a chemist, you're going to get a job. Sure, hard science is a little different. But like, no, like learn how to think, learn how to process, learn how to communicate. Then you're going to find success in whatever it is, because you're going to be the person who utilizes AI to do all the stuff that nobody really wants.
That's a great point, Brent. And that's currently missing from our education system because of the focus on passing standardized tests, right? And
I don't think that's the piece that's causing you to be on. Like, I think some standardized tests are a forcing mechanism on how to read and write, right? Like, and do math. I think there's some value in the standardized tests. I think what is missing is that because college has gotten so crazy expensive, like literally insane, that we had to, President Biden, I understand why he did it, waive debt because nobody that graduated with those loans was able to pay it back, which means the ROI in that education was dog shit. It's because it's so expensive. There's an overarching focus of you have to learn a skill in college so that you get a job the day you graduate college to allow you to start paying back.
The motivations are off. I agree. So I agree that there's some standardized testing that's important, but it's the focus on the teachers being measured based on that we have an inequality of motivations, right? Parents and students have a motivation to learn how to learn, as you just described. Teachers don't have that same motivation by and large, right? They have a different motivation. Their motivation is, some of them, most of them, is to get them through the standardized tests. And that's different. There's a disconnection there. But I agree with what you're saying in learning how to learn, and absolutely agree with the college piece. Money to these college kids right now is everything. It's everything because either they don't have to worry about it, like they come from money and they just can't wait to go buy a G-Wagon when they graduate college and all of that. It's like, it's just crazy stuff on social media that they all want to do with these expensive cars and trips and, all of this stuff. Or they are in debt over their eyeballs that they have to dig out from the moment they graduate college. A great book by Mark Cuban. It's like a bunch of memoirs. And one of the best pieces of advice that he gives in that book is for young people to live as frugally as possible for as long as possible. Because what happens is when they give in to the consumerism early, they want the nice car, they want the nice apartment, they reduce their opportunities for experimentation in the world. And he said one of the reasons that he was so successful is he was able to do experiments constantly. He was able to do all kinds of things. And if they fail, doesn't matter. I can still pay my bills. I'm sleeping on somebody's couch, whatever. And it's a very interesting piece of advice because I think that's true for many folks is we get to a point, I know it's true for me early on in my life and career, I wanted to make money. I wanted to get my life started. But had I lived more frugally, I could have experimented more and obviously had different options. I don't regret a thing, but I think there are many people in life who have gone down a road they're not happy with because of a forcing function outside of them.
I think this is related to what I'm about to say. When you're young, and I suffered this myself, and I look back and this was probably my largest mistake, is a belief that I had to get somewhere quickly. And how do I have that forcing function to get there quickly? Oh, I shouldn't do that because, get here. In reality, if you want to slow down and realize that, hey, I have to take the steps, it makes sense for me to do the work and work for that person and start through this process, there's a good chance that you get there faster. Like, go slow to go fast, because you're going to build a foundation that allows you to accelerate at the right time. If you're a bottle rocket and just try to take off hard from the start, you actually don't achieve the heights that you can if you build the foundation first. And I think part of that is learning what you can do, what you need to be able to do, that experimentation to try new things, to build that muscle of your brain of learning and struggle. Like fucking struggle is the answer to everything. If you don't struggle when you're young, you're going to be really shitty at it when it actually hits you when you're later in life. But that experimentation is part of that. Force your own struggles. Live frugally. Figure out how to live on ramen. Have roommates. I read that on social media. So people are complaining, like Twitter, I don't know if it's real or not, but complaining about their rent, right, in a city. How can I afford to live on this $3,500 a month? Like, dude, fucking move somewhere cheaper or get 6 roommates. I know that a lot of my friends who had a job in New York City or whatever, they had a 3-bedroom apartment where 5 people were living in it, or 6. Someone rented the closet and put a mattress in the floor. Like, that's what you do in your 20s. You do not need your own 2-bedroom apartment that's brand new. Fuck that.
Yeah. Well, and what great motivation to get out of that situation, right? Like, man, I can't wait to get out of this closet that I'm sharing a bathroom with 5 dudes, right? By the way, how do you put a sock on the door of the closet when you have a special friend over, Brent? How does that work?
Well, the closet does have a doorknob. But here's the other thing that does, Matt. If you got that closet room, right, you're going to work. Because know where you want to be better, you could be at work. Work-life balance, let me go to this wonderful life outside of work. Because it sucks.
No.
You're going to be 2 places. You're going to be at work, you're going to be out drinking, or you're going to be passed out on that mattress in the closet. 2 of those 3 things are fun, and the third one is not.
I think that social media is sort of weaponized comparison, the drive to have, the drive to one-up, the drive to perform. It's not just social media's fault, but there's a lot going on there. I feel like that has created a pressure loop. Employees feel like they need more money. Businesses push harder to deliver it. People break in that process. or you have this big shift into entrepreneurialism, which I think is great. That sort of takes us back to where we were as a country, right? I mean, most people were entrepreneurs back then. And I think the real skills that are missing in where we teach these, I don't necessarily know. I think a lot of it has to be taught at home, but maybe some in the education system is stress management, communication, grounding yourself, living healthy while working hard. That sounds like work-life balance, but those things it's just life. Like, this is just life for us now, that we have to learn how to manage the coexistence of work in our lives because we're fully connected, and it's ever present.
I think stress management is important, but I think we have to also get away from the idea that stress is inherently negative. I think that has been stressful since life began. Like, people have stress in their lives, but it's also a driver and a motivator. And I think there's differentiating between stress and the clinical ideas of depression and anxiety. Right? They're not the same. And it is okay to have stress and to deal with adversity, because you will get better if you know how to deal with it. And I think knowing how to manage it, but also expecting it, I think there's a key. Stress management is not stress mitigation. It's learning how to handle it in a healthy way. You know what I mean?
I agree in some ways, I disagree in others. One of the things that I've observed is that people don't even realize that they're in a constant state of fight or flight. Like, especially entrepreneurs.
100%.
It's in that way, we have to find ways to reduce their stress. Though in that way, it's like, we do need some stress mitigation techniques. Stress elimination, I don't think is realistic or even beneficial. Like, stress is just a part of moving us forward. We need those experiences, like we just talked about. We need stressful experiences to learn. We need stressful experiences to shift and grow. All of that stuff is necessary. What we've lost, and I don't know that we've ever had it, but I think the shift that's happening right now is that we're realizing how to read our bodies, because we're seeing some people are learning how to contrast their healthy, non-stressed life or healthy, non-stressed portion of life with stress. So many people are in a constant state of stress, they don't know what the difference is. So it's like, the first step is to figure out what it looks like to de-stress, and now you have contrast to work.
Yeah. I think a lot of the stress, as you pointed out, has to do with expectations. Right. I think if you're just dealing with the stress, you're dealing with symptoms. What's the root cause? It's an assumption of an expectation of what should happen, as opposed to an acceptance of things are going to happen. That change in perception of expectations is the key. I expect less than I used to in my life, and I'm less stressed as a result. I think that applies to a lot of people, because you can't have everything all the time. The point you just brought up is socials and phones cause their own inherent stress, and, there have been studies that tie them directly to cortisol levels, etc. You need some downtime from your electronics. Like, literally, just actually, you know what? It's not electronics. It's totally fine. I think everyone should watch TV, right? TV's great, but just don't watch it while you're also holding your phone.
As we kind of wind this thing down, one statement or phrase that was shared with me in the last couple of years that's been incredibly beneficial, it relates to this topic, is that suffering is resistance to what is, or resistance to what is true. And it relates directly to your expectations comment. I really struggled with accepting that phrase, because to me it felt like giving in, and it felt like I could no longer be ambitious, right? That I would have to put my ambitions to the side in order to stop resisting what is. But the reality, as I explored it and embodied it, was acceptance of what is can be true at the same time you have ambition to make things better. So you can accept the way things are while also wanting them to improve, or putting things in motion to improve. So I just wanted to share that with the audience, that for me, it felt like one or the other, but both can be true.
So I'm going to bring it around to something else. You're entering the world of a Buddhist. Okay. Buddhism is a wonderful thing for those who have studied it. It's really cool. I suggest reading the Dalai Lama. I read him. I read a lot of stuff, man. And he's got this quote, and it might be apocryphal, it might not, I'm not really sure. But it was, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Mm-hmm.
And like, life is going to suck at some point in time. You will have pain, but your perspective and expectations that go into it are the key, right? Like, life is hard, but how that difficulty affects you is your own choice.
Totally agree.
And I don't know, we got a little far away from 1776. But
I love where it ended up, and we could probably go for another hour or two on this. So always appreciate you, Brent, and your perspective, your grounding in data and information and history, and mine in philosophy and woo-woo stuff. I think comes together really nicely in conversations like this.
So yeah, this would be great. For anyone out there that wants to go have a deeper conversation about the founding of America, our country, call me anytime. My phone number, I don't keep it private. I love that shit. Like, I love it so much that I teach it, right? Like, you know, Matt, I don't know how much time you have right now.
I've got a hard stop. Like 1 minute.
1 minute. Call me about the First Amendment. Maybe we do a trilogy of America here, Matt, over the next couple of months. I love this. And we do when we do the First Amendment, or we'll do 3. We're gonna do that, guys. This is one. Let's do it. We're doing America.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got all the way through July, and so yes,
America Rock. That's what we're gonna do. It's gonna America Rocks trilogy. Vital style or Flywheel Effect. But anyway, Matt, any final thoughts?
No, this is great. I appreciate you, appreciate the listeners sticking with us through this conversation. And I think it is entertaining and informative, which is our goal.
And my last thought is, if anybody would like a pocket constitution to carry with them at all times, send me an email and I will send you one. I love giving them out. So anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. This has been a wonderful episode of the Flywheel Effect. If you'd enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed it, please give us a like or a follow, a little 5-star click review. And if you think someone that you know would find use or enjoyment out of it, please give it a share. So until next time, it's the Flywheel Effect. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flywheel Effect. Our journey through the intricate world of luxury home services continues to be fueled by your passion for excellence and innovation. If you found value in our conversations today, don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. More insights and resources. Visit us online at growwithvital.com. Until next time.